everyone, Nick here from What Game Now, and apologies it's taken this long to get this video out. We've been really busy with heavy gear content. So just to clarify, I want to clarify the plan going forward with these videos. We're still going to do them. What is going to change is the regularity. We were trying to do as many as possible. Now we're game planning currently right now is to schedule every other week. So this week we're doing Disciples of Agony. Next week we're doing, I think we're going to do Black Industries. Or Dark Host, one of the two. Probably Dark Host. For the theme forces. And in between the weeks where we do Warmachine and Hordes theme forces, I'm also going to be doing unit reviews for Heavy Gear Blitz, if you would like to see that kind of content. We're going to do the Northern Hunter for our first video out next week. So, here's Disciples of Agony. This was requested by a viewer, so if you would like to see a theme force, feel free to drop us a line, and we'll see about getting it done sooner rather than later. Alright, so who the heck are the Disciples of Agony? Well, in the Skorne Empire, there is a... cult is probably a bad word. There is a movement of a bunch of individuals who are following an ancient Skorne named Morkash, who essentially achieved power from pain. Remember that the Skorne Empire is very much about amassing personal power. I mean, their titles are tyrant and things like that. And they seek to do this through pain. So either pain on themselves or pain on others. And this theme force is those followers going to war. So major elements that are involved in Disciples of Agony, you have the Mortithurges, the Annihilators, and the Paingivers. And what they're going to be doing is they're going to be using their skills on war beasts and minions, captured warriors, but it's all minions in game, to further the goals of the Skorne Empire. So, without any further ado, let's get into the theme force itself. So right off the top, we are available to take any Skorne Warlock. Now, we can take any Skorne Warlock. That doesn't mean it's a good idea to take Skorne Warlocks. Oh, well, we are going to take Skorne Warlocks, obviously, but not every single one of them is a good idea. But they are all available, which is very nice. Non-character war beasts, so any of the Skorne generic non-character war beasts are good. We are allowed to take Chiron, if you would like a character war beast. Remember, if you have a war beast that has the bond rule, you can always include it with its caster, regardless of theme force. So, it is possible to see, like, Molet Karn or Tiberian in this list. Models and units available to you are Paingiver, Annihilator, and Mortithurge model units. So the units available to us are Annihilators, Paingiver Beast Handlers, and Paingiver Bloodrunners. That's the only Skorne units that are available to us. Note that there is no Mortithurge unit at the time of this video. Solo-wise, the only in-faction solos we have are the Paingiver Bloodrunner Master Tormentor, the Paingiver Taskmaster, Tyrant, the Mortithurge Willbreaker, and then Optimus Marketh and Tyrant Zadesh, or Zadesh 1 if you prefer the numbers. So not a lot of in-faction solos. We are allowed to have the Siege Animanthrax, which is going to be very helpful later on. And we're allowed any number, not one, any number of minion units and solos. And that's the first indication of kind of the direction this theme force is going to start taking. Or at least what one of those directions is. Special rules. So the big rule here is Skorne Warlocks in this army can control non-character minion warbeasts. Minion warbeasts in this army that are controlled by a Skorne Warlock are considered to be Skorne warbeasts, not minions. So what this means is they lose the minion faction, they get the Skorne faction. And I want to quickly reference one thing in there. It says Skorne Warlock. Zadesh 1 is not a Warlock. So if you give models to Zadesh, he doesn't benefit from this rule. He can still only take Skorne beasts. And even if he could, they wouldn't be faction anyway. So we can't give the good stuff to Zadesh. Fine. The other rule is sacrificial pawn minion warrior model on Paingiver models. Now your Paingiver models are your Master Tormentor, your Blood Runners, your Taskmaster. There's also 4 Warlocks who are Paingivers, and those are Zakar and the 3 Morgals. So the cool thing about Sac-Pawn is, if you get hit directly by an enemy ranged attack, you can just off it to the guy next to you, and they suffer the effects instead. So You could, this will come up later on, one of the units we're going to talk about is the Pharaoh Valkyries, who have Shield Guard and Vengeance. So you can just surround your Warcast, your Warlock with them, off damage to them, and then they're going to get bonuses because they got damaged. Requisition options. So we have 5. The first one is we can take an Agonizer Warbeast. Agonizer is really good. We can also take a Kriya. Kriya is also really good. So it's interesting to note that we are allowed to have Warbeasts for free. In fact, the Agonizer is 6 points and the Kriya is 7. If you wanted to, you can just take 3 Kriyas and get 21 free points. Wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but it's an option. 1 Skorne command attachment. This is really easy. At this point, there are no legal command attachments in this theme force. None of the Skorne units have it, and Skorne doesn't have a ranking officer. And even if they did have the ranking officer, not legal in the theme force, so that makes that easy. And then, if we keep going on down, our other options are 2 Paingiver Taskmaster solos. So the Paingiver Taskmaster is a solo that is designed to buff minion units. He has a bunch of abilities that target friendly minions, not friendly faction models, just friendly minions. Their point cost 3, their field allowance 2, so you can get your maximum field allowance for one requisition. And they have a bunch of really useful abilities, especially if you're going to go minion heavy, which we're not obligated to. And then the standard 1 smaller medium-based Skorne solo, so you could take Optimus Marketh as a free solo, you could take a Mortithurge Willbreaker as a solo, you could take a Master Tormentor as a solo, or as a requisition option. Those aren't bad. I very commonly see 2 Agonizers and a Kriya if you're going to go beast heavy. If you're not going to go beast heavy, it's usually a Taskmaster and then some other combination of things, usually some other solos. Alright, so some general commentary with this theme. This is a hyper-flexible theme. You can go troop heavy, you can go beast heavy. Now, you have a lot of options, that doesn't mean they're all good. The beast heavy option for this list is phenomenal. The minion Warbeasts are a huge bonus because of their animi. The Black-Eyed Wrestler has Rage, the Swamp Horror has Elasticity, for example, which are all phenomenal animi that are going to help our Warbeasts out quite a bit. Unfortunately, it's the troop-heavy option where things tend to suffer a little bit. And the problem with the troop-heavy option is, well, twofold. Number one, if you go minion heavy, the minions do not become friendly faction in this theme force for whatever reason. What that means is a lot of your spells and feats are not going to work on the minion models, and that is something that is very important to keep in mind. So when you're looking at casters, if you want to go minion heavy, you need to be very careful as to how many of their abilities require friendly faction models. You're going to want to look towards either debuff casters who affect your opponent, we'll get to a couple of those, or casters that have minimal amounts of friendly faction abilities. If you want to go with Skorne infantry to get the friendly faction bonus, your only real option is to start with double Annihilators and some Bloodrunners. And while not terrible, the Annihilators are a little bit one-sided. The Annihilators are a very, very strong anti-infantry unit. They're Mat 7, they have a range 2 melee weapon, and they have Berserk. That's all infantry shredding. You're going to be hard-pressed to kill something big with that. The only other unit with some combat potential is the Bloodrunners, who max out at POW 8 as per standard. Or, I'm sorry, at POW 10 if you account for gang. They're just really maneuverable. So, we're gonna be very careful with that infantry heavy build. I mentioned Bloodrunners. I also want to mention Bogtrog Ambushers here real fast. You have access to ambush models in this theme force, which, especially if you're going beast heavy, is very powerful. The Bloodrunners in particular, with how fast they can get, are very helpful. Requisition options. So if you're going to take beast heavy, a Kriya and an Agonizer is pretty standard, and usually a second Kriya is the third requisition option at 75 points. You will occasionally see Marketh, but usually it's a second Agonizer, and they just pay for Marketh. For the infantry heavy build, the only usual requirement is 2 Taskmasters. Sorry, mistype on that one. It's the Taskmaster who's got the minion stuff, and Let me quickly run through the Taskmaster to explain why this model is so good. It has a POW 10 melee weapon with a 2-inch range, and it's MAT 6. This thing is not an offensive piece. But, running through its abilities here, no sleeping on the job minion. This model and friendly minion models in its command range, which is 7 by the way, cannot be knocked down. Pain Driver, range 3, target friendly non-warlock minion warrior model unit. So basically what that means is can't be a warlock or a warlock, and it has to be either a unit or a warrior model, so no battle engines. If it's in range, the unit gains +2 strength, which is really good. Scudder, which grants these same requirements, but the target gets repositioned 3. And lastly is Temper Flesh, same requirements, but the unit gains Tough, which is really nice. So a lot of durability, a lot of buffs here. You have a durability buff, you have a movement buff, and you have a damage buff on a 3-point package, and you get 2 of these for 1 requisition. If you're going to go minion infantry heavy, you're getting Taskmasters. It's not up for debate. All right, Warlocks. So let's start at the top here. For the beast heavy builds, any beast heavy caster will do. You could do Naresh, you could do Zakar. Personally, I'm a fan of Xerxes 2 for the phenomenal feat and the speed buff and the fact that he has rapport. All of these are... Oh, and he's got Ignite too because he needs a damage buff. Very short spell list, but it's all the good stuff. And his feat is phenomenal, and he also works well with the battle engines, which is something we're going to want to leverage later on. Dominar Resheth. So Resheth is just generally good. He's a very debuff-focused caster. His stuff doesn't require your models to do things. He's going to affect the opponent, which lets him work really well with the infantry spam. Zal 1 is really good for the Annihilators. Zal 1 is really good for the Annihilators. He has a spell called Last Stand, which makes the Annihilators hit really hard. You also got an argument for Xerxes 1, who also does really well. Ignore the feat, not friendly faction. That's just a typo. Xerxes feat does work on friendly faction models. It's worth noting that Xerxes feat only works on friendly faction models. So if you're going to go minion heavy, don't do Xerxes. If you want to go Skorne heavy infantry, do Zal 1 or Xerxes. If you want to go minion infantry heavy, you're probably looking at Hexorus 1, and Hexorus 1 is probably your best bet. There's also an argument for Makeda 1. So, takeaways here. Any beast heavy caster works well for the beast list. I'm personally a fan of Xerxes 2. Resheth just works generally. Zal 1 or Xerxes 1 if you want to spam Annihilators, and then either Makeda 1 or... Man, I just forgot his name. Hexorus 1. You're going to want to pick one of those two if you want to go with the minions. And that's the problem right there with the minion option. There's no really good warcasters to slot into that. Yes, there's some perfectly serviceable ones, but nothing that quite takes advantage of it as well as you would like. Casters to avoid, not because they're bad, just because they don't really mesh well with the theme force. Makeda 2. Makeda 2, like Skorne infantry models, Annihilators just aren't enough. You want the other stuff. You want Praetorians or something like that. And then Zal 2 really likes his Ancestral Guardians. He really likes his Immortals, none of which are available in this theme. So I just kind of recommend avoiding those. Other than that, you can probably come up with a serviceable list for pretty much any caster. Building infantry heavy, or building beast heavy just in general. The Skorne beast list just kind of runs itself. And the caster's just there taking advantage of it. War Beasts. So there are a lot of War Beasts that you have access to in this theme force. You get all the Skorne ones first off, and general Skorne War Beasts to look at, Agonizer and Korea are always going to be fantastic choices. The Eridus, both of them are perfectly fine. Personally, the Soldiers got quite a bit of potential here because it hits so hard. The downside is they're really slow. The Archidon, especially if you want to play Xerxes 2, has a lot of potentially interesting applications. The Bronzeback Titan, expensive, but always hits very hard. The Titan Gladiator, a generic good choice. That is just something you're going to find out quite a bit. Things I'd avoid, the Rhinodon, not terribly interesting. The Razorworm, again, not terribly exciting. The Titans are usually going to be a better choice. The Eridus are usually going to be a better choice. Gargantuans, you can actually play with the Desert Hydra and the Mammoth in this list. The Desert Hydra is actually fairly, I don't want to say fairly common, but not unheard of. And the Mammoth is an option too. And one of the reasons why is that double Agonizer. With 2 Agonizers available to you, you can essentially look at your opponent and say, you are never, ever, under any circumstances, going to get to my Gargantuan without a strength debuff. And if you combine this with, say, Reshef, now all of a sudden your Gargantuan's getting to nigh unkillable range. Alright, for the out-of-faction stuff. Everything I just said about Gargantuans works for the Dracodile. Dracodile's a perfectly fine choice. Not the most common thing, because you look at like a Hydra or something like that, and there's arguments for that. The other reason is you're usually going to see 2 Siege Animantrax in a Beast-heavy build, so there really isn't points for the Gargantuan. Other out-of-faction stuff of note, Black-Hide Wrastler, so this is the Gator-heavy. It has Rage as its Animus, which is +3 Strength. Skorne units are now hitting even harder, or the Skorne boar beasts are hitting even harder. The Battle Boar is a cheaper version of the Black-Hide Wrastler. It's light, so it's nowhere near the same output, but its Animus is Primal, which is only +2 Strength, or it's only +2 to your damage in melee attacks. And you have to auto Frenzy next turn, but it's a lot cheaper. Swamp Horror. So the Swamp Horror has the Elasticity Animus, which gives you a 4-inch melee range, which is very interesting. A couple of things you can do. Blind Walker. If you need an Arc Node, you got an Arc Node. It's kind of a janky Arc Node, but hey, it's an Arc Node that does something. The Gun Boar, the Splatter Boar, and the Ironback Spitter are some very interesting choices because they have ranged attacks. So there's kind of a weird gun line you could build with this if you really wanted to. The Roadhog, never a bad choice. A lot of threat range, and especially with the buffs available to you, you can get a whole lot out of it. The Warhog, similar argument. You can get a lot of damage out of this thing. There's a lot of very good stuff. There's even some weird applications for things like the Bone Swarm if you really want to go that way. Not a whole lot of truly terrible choices. Just look towards the good stuff, and generally you're going to be playing a lot of heavies. Alright, units. So this is a fairly short discussion on the Skorne stuff because there's only 3 of them. If you're going Beast Heavy, you're taking Beast Handlers. If you are not taking Beast Handlers and you're going Beast Heavy, you are making a mistake. Or you need to have a very good reason why. They're Fury Management, they can heal, they got a buffet of really good abilities that help your beasts. Blood Runners. Advanced Deployment Unit, has Stealth, can ambush. Anatomical Precision means they can auto-kill single wound infantry regardless of armor. Generally very good choice. Annihilators, you're going to see them in the Annihilator heavy build. Other than that, there's no real compelling reason to take them. Now, the minion units, on the other hand, there's a lot here to unpack. First off, Boilmaster and Spirit Cauldron. So first off, this thing can stack corpses if for some reason you need corpse mechanics. It can spend the corpses to boost attack and damage rolls, which is always going to be very helpful because it can just shoot a shot out. It has access to Puppet Master. Puppet Master is, you can target an enemy model unit. If you do so, it's a magic attack, or a friendly unit. And again, Puppet Master, which lets you reroll 1 attack or 1 damage roll, and then it expires. Pretty good stuff. Gatorman Posse. So you're not in Blind Water, so you don't get the extra hit points, but you're still armor 18, potentially 20 with an Agonizer, and you have access to a damage buff thanks to the Taskmaster. A lot of good stuff for the Gatorman Posse there. That in minions they look towards the caster to do that. Here you can just do it. You have those abilities. Pharaoh Valkyries. So this is a little 8-point minion unit. It's 3 pig girls with shield, or with bucklers, I'm sorry. So their armor 17. Defense 13 is just enough to be annoying. They have Gang, they got some other abilities. They have Vengeance, which is a really good one, which means if you damage them, they get to move and make an attack. 3-inch move. They also have Shield Guard. So, oh look, you're shooting my Warcaster or Warlock, or you're shooting this model I don't want you to get rid of. Shield Guard to the Valkyrie. The Valkyries now get a free move and an attack at the start of the next turn. And you probably didn't kill the Valkyrie because of their stat line. On the whole, very good option there. Already mentioned the Boil Cauldron. The Gator Minbo Cur and Bogtrog Shamblers. So this is the Gator with the little zombie Bogtrogs. As guys die around him, he picks up corpse tokens, which become more Bogtrogs. And especially if you're playing a list that has access to damage buffs that work on enemy models, or friendly models, not just friendly faction, this thing can do a lot. I mean, it really can do a lot. It also has access to magic abilities, so it can actually just auto-stationary something, which is always going to be very good. Alright, and, oh, by the way, it can buy and boost melee attacks if it removes zombies from play, which is always really good. A couple other unit comments to note here. Feral Brigands, there's some very interesting arguments here for Feral Brigands. You, because of the Hog Wild Order, they actually can do quite a bit of damage, especially if there's a debuff floating around. Bone Grinders. So, Bone Grinders can give a range bonus on spells. Not bad. Not the greatest thing in the world, but hey, it's something. A lot of the Croak stuff isn't terribly exciting. The Raiders aren't bad. They're a little expensive, but they're not bad, and they're a nice range unit that this unit doesn't have access to. Commandos, perfectly serviceable melee unit. Nothing especially amazing about it. Slaughterhousers are your damage dealers if you're going to go into minion heavy infantry land. Finisher gets them up to effectively POW 14 Weapon Masters if the target's damaged and there's a Taskmaster nearby. I would generally try to avoid things like the Razorback crew. It doesn't really do anything. It's not a fan. The Trappers are cute, but why are you spending points on them? And the Bogtrog Ambushers, while not bad, and they're an ambush unit, which is very helpful, I'd rather just take the Bloodrunners. The Bloodrunners are a friendly faction, they have stealth, and they have anatomical precision, which is going to help out quite a bit. Alright, enough about the units, let's go on to the solos and the battle engines. There's a bunch of these as well. So in faction solos, right off the bat, I'm going to say Zadesh is probably something that's worth leaving at home. It's not because he's bad, it's because he doesn't get the bonus of his Warbeast being able to take the minion Warbeasts and make them Skorne models. Bloodrunner Master Tormentor, not bad. It's a decent combat model, and it has access to Thresher, so you can clear a bunch of infantry out. He's a Weapon Master. Not bad, not amazing. The Taskmaster's just auto-take this guy. Why are we even having this discussion if you're going to take minion infantry? Mortithurge Willbreaker. The Mortithurge Willbreaker, he's got Puppet Master. That's about the only really interesting thing on him. He does extend control range if you he can do the forcing on Warbeast in his command range as if he was a battle group controller. So you can push Fury onto things that are out of your control range. Not bad abilities. The problem is you have access to the Boilmaster, and we'll get to it in a moment. You also have access to Eilish Garrity. So you often don't see the Mortithurge unless you really need the extended control range or you really needed the 1 point. And then the only other thing available in faction-wise that we can take, of course, is Aptimus Marketh. Aptimus Marketh is just a great solo. Harmonious Exaltation, great. Reduce the cost of a spell, and Spell Slave. He can cast a non-upkeep spell that's cost 3 or less, as long as it's not self or control. All very, very nice abilities, especially if you got somebody who's a little bit on the Fury Starve side, like, say, Xerxes too. And his Spirit Eye is actually randomly an amazing gun. It's surprisingly powerful when you start shooting heavies, and they're like POW 18 or something like that. Alright, on to the minion solos. There's a whole bunch of these, and I'm just going to kind of go down War Room and mention some of note here. Bogtrog Misspeaker can grant Eyeless Sight, which is really nice for ranged attacks, but also grants magic weapons. So if you got a troublesome Gremlin Swarm, don't really have a problem with that. Bone Shrine. Kind of cute. Not the biggest fan. A lot of its stuff is friendly faction, so I wouldn't really worry about it. But it is armor 18, does have distant deployment, so if you need something to go camp in a zone really early, it's not a terrible choice. I wouldn't recommend it, but hey, it's something you can do. Eilish Garrity. So Eilish Garrity, big things about him is, while in his command range, enemy models, when they cast a spell targeting somebody in his command range, take D3 damage, which is nice. There's not a lot of magic-heavy units out there, but like Hex Hunters or something hate this guy. And then Unbinding and Puppet Master. Puppet Master is really good because essentially it lets him fill a slot similar to the Mortarthurge. And then Unbinding also lets him remove upkeep spells. He also has access to a boostable POW 10 magic attack. Alright. Back to the war room, sorry. A couple of things to note here. Pharaohgeist. I mean, it's a Pharaohgeist. It's never a bad choice. It's 2 points. It's really cheap. Go have fun. Gatorman Husk. It ambushes, it kind of likes to run to its opponent, and it blows up. What's not to love? Gremlin Swarm. Grimkin like their Gremlin Swarms because they are nigh on unkillable in some situations, and you can have that too. The Hermit of Henchhold. I think I've already talked a fair bit about this guy in some other videos, but TLDR, he's got a lot of really good abilities, and he's got an armor debuff, and he's really hard to kill. What's not to like about him? Alright, and then just to kind of finish off our discussion here, Orin Midwinter, Rogue Inquisitor, never a bad choice. Got a lot of really cool abilities. And then the other ones of note here are the Void Archon, because Skorne gets the Void Archon. The Void Archon has Dark Shroud, so hey, here's an extra damage debuff. And it can clear out a lot of troops that sprays. It can also collect souls and do things with it. It's a very good model overall. I mean, it's an Archon. What's not to like about it? And then the last one is Wrong Eye and Snapjaw. So Wrong Eye and Snapjaw are very interesting because they let you get minion war beasts and them still be minions. Is that relevant? I don't know. Depends on what else is going on. Some of the other solos I didn't mention because you're not dealing with friendly faction stuff. For example, Quack Slickspine. Why would you ever take this guy? Because you don't have any minions. If you take Wrong Eye, they are minion war beasts. The big thing about Wrong Eye, though, is he has Starcross. Basically what you do with this guy is you move up, you cast Snapjaw's Animus, which is Submerge, which can't be targeted by ranged attacks. And then you cast Starcross. So anybody within 8 inches of Wrong Eye enemy model rolls an additional die on their attack roll and then discard one. Or discard the highest die, I'm sorry. Makes models very annoying to deal with. Defense 12 goes from something that's usually hit to something that's very annoying under Wrong Eye and Snapjaw. Also, Snapjaw is just a good heavy in general. And then the Siege Animantrax. This is going to take a few minutes to go through this thing because there's a lot to unpack here. So, long story short, this thing is absolutely crazy amazing, and I would take 2 of them in a beast-heavy build every day of the week and twice on Sundays. So, just to run through this thing, it's speed 8, really good. Mat 6, Rat 5, not bad. Defense 10, Armor 20. Armor 20 is really good, with 35 hit points. This thing is almost a Khador Warjack, but it's twice as fast. It has Pathfinder, as you might expect from a battle engine, and it's also Cavalry, meaning it has the Cavalry rules. And the 2 big ones there are it can make impact attacks, and its first charge attack roll is boosted attack. Weapons, it has 2 spears that are power 11, that are in its right and left arcs respectively. Its mount attack is power 15, which is really good. It has a range 2, power strength 18 clubtail that has no firing arc, so pretty good. And it has a range 12, rate of fire D3+1, POW 13 gun called the Double Reaver. So let me go through some of the weapon rules, and then we'll go through the model rules, and then we'll kind of explain why this model is as amazing as it is. First off, the clubtail has automatic knockdown. If the clubtail hits you, you are knocked down. Remember, this thing is cavalry, so if it charges you, it's getting a boosted attack roll. So a boosted Mat 6, and if it hits you, you're auto knocked down. That's really good. The spears have a rule called independent attack. Basically, they're power plus strength 11, and this model can make initial attacks with this weapon before it makes its normal move. Basically says you can stab things before you move. Double Reaver. Volume Fire. Gain +1 to attack and damage rolls with this weapon against medium-based models, and +2 to attack and damage rolls against large and huge-based models. So let's say you have a large base Warcaster. The Animantrax charges you. I get a boosted Mat 6 power 18 attack against you, and if it hits, you're automatically knocked down. And then I shoot you D3+ times with a power 15 gun. This seems really good so far. Gets even better. So, first off, this has a rule called Beast. This model can be targeted with the Medicate special actions as if it were a War Beast. It basically says you can heal it with Pain Givers. It has Reposition 3, because Speed 8's not enough. You need a 3-inch move at the end of your activation. It can Trample, so run over all the infantry in the way. So hey, you want to jam this guy up to stop him from charging your Warlock or Warcaster? What if he just trampled over everything? We have a problem. That's really good. All right, on to the more obnoxious interactions. Cantankerous. When this model is damaged by an attack, it gains 1 Rage token. This model can have up to 3 Rage tokens on it at any time. During its activation, this model can spend Rage tokens to make additional melee attacks, or to boost melee attack or damage rolls. So remember when it charged you? Hit you with that POW 18, boosted to hit, because it's a cavalry model, boosted damage because it's a charge attack. Now it can buy 3 of them if it has 3 Rage tokens. So now, not only have you taken the POW 18 from the club tail, you also took 3 more POW 18s if it wants to just make the attacks. Or maybe it boosted. Maybe it's boosting instead. Maybe it's going to buy an attack, boost damage, and then buy another attack. Depends on how the math works out as to what's better. And its last ability, because we're not done yet, Dual Attack. This model can make melee and ranged attacks in the same activation. Alright, so this is the crazy part. So it charges you. Okay. If you try and get in its way, it just punches you with the little spears first. And if it can't charge you, it just tramples. Alright, so it's going to get where it needs to go. It's speed 8, so it charges 11 inches, and it has a 2-inch melee on all of its weapons. So, really good. Set them out. It's going to hit you with a Power 18 Club Tail that has a boosted attack roll at Mat 6. Very respectable. Keep in mind that there's probably a Mortar Third, Eilish, or a Boilmaster involved, so if it misses, it can reroll. It has now hit you with the Club Tail. If you have survived the boosted damage POW 18, you are now knocked down automatically. Now, if it has 3 Rage tokens, it has 3 buy and boost options. It can just punch you 3 more times with that POW 18. It can boost damage if it has to on one of those on that POW 18. It could perhaps trample you and use a Rage token to boost its attack and damage roll to get the auto knockdown. A lot of flexibility here. If for some reason you have survived being knocked down and hit with 3 or 4 POW 18 attacks, one is boosted, it then promptly shoots you with the double reaver with D3 plus 1 shots. POW 13. Can't boost them, but that's chip damage. By the way, did I remember to mention that this thing is armor 20 with 35 hit points? And you want to know the best part about this model? It's field allowance 2, because it's a battle engine, and it's only 17 points. This thing right here is why the Gargantuans are not especially common, because why would you not take 2 of these if there's even a remote synergy available to you? Very commonly seen with Resheth, very commonly seen with Xerxes 2. I've even seen it with Xerxes 1 on some occasions. It's just so many good choices here. And then this thing's here, and it's so good. Alright, on to the actual building of the theme, and then we'll close this video out here, because we're getting a little long. Your options are Beast Heavy or Troop Heavy. If you go Beast Heavy, pick a selection of heavies. You're going to want a Wrastler or a Battle Boar. Take your pick. Your requisition options in that case are going to be a Kriya, at least 1 Agonizer, preferably 2. You're going to want a unit of Pain Givers. You're going to want access somewhere to Puppet Master, either through a Willbreaker, Eilish, or a Spirit Master and Boil Cauldron. And then, depending on points left over, you're either going to want to add in a jamming unit. Bloodrunners are a good choice. Or, what I'd recommend, and I'd probably just start here, is with 2 of the battle engines. I'm sorry, I'm failing at names today. Siege Animantrax. If you don't want to play the Siege Animantrax, you've probably got a slot for a Gargantuan. Although it is worth noting that I have seen a version of this that was Xerxes 2, 2 Siege Animantraxes, and a Desert Hydra, backed up by 2 Pain Givers. Or not 2 Pain Givers, 2 Agonizers. And what this thing did is Xerxes 2 has Ignite, so he's got a damage buff. He makes his stuff faster. And on top of that, his feat is basically signs importance on the entire table. He would put the Animus up with the Desert Hydra, so it makes it really hard to shoot. If you charge it, you're at -2 damage, so this thing's really resilient. And then just use the Animantrax and that to just kill everything. If you do not want to go Beast Heavy, you're going to go Troop Heavy, and you have two choices. You can either spam Annihilators, because you're not really going to get as much mileage out of the Blood Runners, or you're going to want to spam Minions. If you're going to spam Annihilators, look to Zal 1, look to Xerxes 1. One of those two. If you want to spam Minions, there's not a lot of options here. Hexorus 1 and Makeda 1 are probably the two standouts, and they're not even amazing in that slot. So, you get three choices: Beast Heavy, Troop Heavy with Annihilators, or Troop Heavy with Minions. So, there's your theme force. There's a lot here. So one thing I want to really emphasize with this theme force is this is just my commentary. This is my personal opinions from what I've seen going to tournaments and all that. I'm not a Skorne player. I'm going to freely admit to that. But I look at this theme force and I see so many choices. And one of the downsides with so many choices is you need to investigate these choices. So while I'm saying, hey, I'm not a fan of the Annihilator spam, or I don't think there's especially a great option if you want to spam Minions, you really need to go out there and try it, because there's so much here to unpack that you need to experiment with this. So with that, this is our theme force video on the Disciples of Agony. We're going to go ahead and say Dark Host is next. It should come out 2 weeks after this video is the plan. And that is a Crix theme force. If you have any other requests for theme forces, drop it in the comments below, and we'll see about hotshotting it on the way there. With that, have a good one.
Hey, this is Dave. If you like what we're doing here at What Game Now, go ahead and click on one of the videos, which should be on either side of me, or click right in the middle and go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the bell once you subscribe so that you know when we have new videos. Please go ahead and share us with your friends. Let everybody know that we're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for all of our subscribers already. And we look forward to bringing you more content every chance that we get.